Kano's name is enough for Mortal Kombat fans to stop in their tracks and take a deep breath. This Black Dragon mercenary leaves a perpetual bad taste in Sonya Blade's mouth and is defined by his trickery and aggression. Whether you love him, it's a fact that many fans do not look beyond the surface. His hulking build and cybernetic eye make him one of the most visually impressive characters in the franchise, at least to me, and I think he deserves a proper breakdown. So that is exactly what we'll be doing today, and by the end of this video, it will definitely be clear why Kano's not the guy you would want to run into in a dark alley.
Kano wins.
Who was Kano before anyone cut him open? Right off the bat, it's very obvious that he's a bad guy, because I don't know many good guys who were enthusiastic about ripping people's hearts out and displaying them like trophies. It's one of my favorite things about him, to be honest, right up there with Sub-Zero's spine rip. I'm a normal person, I promise you, but come on, that's such a sick move. The actual proposed action by Richard DeVizio in 1992 involved ripping the heart out, biting it, and then lifting it up into the air. That idea was rejected, no surprise there, and the biting was removed, while heartbeat sounds were added for an extra dose of realism. In the arcade mode, we see that after winning, Kano plans to ruin the tournament. The screen reads, "With the defeat of Goro and Shang Tsung, Kano will bring his own brand of treachery to the tournament. His Black Dragon organization forms a monopoly over the contest that brings shame and torment to all those involved." Of course, like most early arcade endings, this is more of a what-if victory screen than the canon timeline. Anyway, this might come as a bit of a surprise to some of the newer fans, but did you know that Kano was not originally conceived as the Australian bastard we know today? Early material treated him as a Japanese-born American, or Japanese American, before later games leaned into the Australian identity that fans associated with Trevor Goddard's 1995 movie performance. That Australian identity was heavily influenced by Goddard's portrayal, and it became formally cemented in the game lore around Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Now you know why he has a Japanese name, but is not portrayed as Asian. According to Sonya, in the past, Kano pretended to be a member of the Black Dragon, who was actually working as an informant for the Special Forces. It was only a matter of time before he was ousted as their leader, and he set a deadly trap, killing a massive number of Special Forces. He was also involved in killing Sonya's partner. The earlier ambush was not a complete victory for him, since it was at this time that he lost his right eye, courtesy of Jax. However, this happened before the events of Mortal Kombat as we know it, so Kano appeared with his cybernetic eye in the very first game itself. Other details of his past remain a bit shrouded, except that he's always been a shrewd opportunist, known for shifting his alliances according to his needs. In the original timeline, he was able to rise through the ranks of Shao Kahn's forces and became the general of Outworld's armies. So I hope I've been able to convey that the violence, aggression, and occasional cowardice were always a part of Kano's personality. He didn't devolve into what he became simply because of the enhancements made to his body. Those simply fueled the crazy fire that was already beneath and turned the man into a more unhinged version of himself. So where did that eye actually come from? His original design simply featured a helmet with red eyes, and it was later revised in 1992 by Ed Boon and company. This led to the creation of his signature cybernetic eye look, which was heavily inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger's look in The Terminator. However, there is another bit that can explain the design. John Tobias, in an interview with GamePro magazine, had said, "I was in a costume shop looking for some gun belts when I saw they had Mardi Gras masks hanging on the wall. He put that mask on Richard's head and then got to thinking that it would be really cool if, at one point, Kano got his eye shot out and had to replace it with an infrared metal implant. He then proceeded to cut one of those masks in half and used some spirit gum to stick it to Richard DeVizio's face, and that's how Kano's iconic look was born. One of the earliest concept sketches of this character also featured him with an eye patch. It looked good, of course, because eye patches are always badass, but nothing beats a mechanical infrared eye plus a metal plate. His Mortal Kombat 1 comic book describes Kano's eyes as one brown, one infrared, so he enjoys enhanced night vision. Mortal Kombat 3 took it a step further and called his faceplate a sophisticated heat beam, a laser. This was then used as one of the best fatalities in the game. Later games have also used this feature in different ways. For example, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance mentions that he uses the laser to push aggressive attackers away. There was a really opportune moment to explore just what had happened between Kano and Jax in Mortal Kombat Special Forces, because it's said as a prequel. But, well, the developers weren't really thinking at all with that game. Mortal Kombat Legacy, however, did a better and very visceral job showing how the punch popped Kano's eye out, making it stick to the glass behind. Visceral, just like I said. There was a bit of foreshadowing to this eye-popping moment, pun intended. When Kano picks up a small cylinder ball connected to a bunch of wires from a cart and is told it was a new directed energy weapon, and he simply asks the poor dude to work faster. In the Mortal Kombat X comic series, we see him talking about how he got a new eye, and it's then explained exactly why he needed it. He was in a fight with Sub-Zero, who was clearly not having it, and said, "I've already been dead once, never again," while smashing Kano's skull, and once again, giving a very visceral picture of the robotic eye popping out. But enough about his eye. Have you ever wondered who installed it? Who was the doctor who performed the surgery? Su Hao, who we see in Deadly Alliance, is revealed to have been part of a secret Chinese military unit that dabbled with cybernetic enhancements on human beings. The surgeon who was behind Kano's eye was the same person involved with this. We finally catch a glimpse of this doctor in Mortal Kombat 2011, in Cabal's ending. This is not canon again, but it does give an interesting behind-the-scenes perspective on who gave Kano his legendary, iconic upgrade. What exactly did they build inside him? The red eye and faceplate are not the only enhancements of Kano. The complete technical loadout is introduced slowly in the franchise, with nearly every installment adding something cooler to his existing abilities. We've already covered his eye in Mortal Kombat in 1992. Mortal Kombat 2 unfortunately didn't have Kano, or Sonya either for that matter, as a playable character, simply because he wasn't popular enough. We just see him chained next to the arena, which again is not explained. In 1995 with Mortal Kombat 3, Kano returned and the game tried to give some explanation regarding his earlier absence. It says that he was assumed to have died during the tournament, but he'd escaped to Outworld and Sonya was once again unable to apprehend him. Kano then pleaded with Shao Kahn to spare his soul, and the latter agreed because he needed someone to teach his armies how to use Earth's weapons. This is where we see his eye-powered lasers for the first time, strong enough to blast his opponents. And if that's not enough, MK3 Kano is not happy with simply pulling out people's hearts. No sir, this time, he somehow reaches inside his opponent's mouth and can pull out their entire skeleton. I always wonder how he did that through the mouth, but hey, this isn't biology class. Let's just say it's cool and creepy as hell and move on. The game's ending says Kano lures Shao Kahn's armies away on a false mission, nukes them with a stolen weapon, defeats the Emperor himself, and then tries to steal control of the souls Khan once possessed. However, he really overestimated his abilities and ended up dying a brutal death as the souls escaped and started attacking. While his death was only rumored, accidentally, he removes one threat to Earthrealm, but only because he's trying to become the next threat himself. Mortal Kombat 4 once again did not feature him, mentioning that the Black Dragon died with Kano. In 2000, MK Special Forces once again showed Kano as the main villain, but I agree with fans who claim that the actual villain in this game is its director, John Walsh. It opens with the Black Dragons blowing up a prison and escaping, walking in a very penguin-esque way, but as I mentioned before, this game really did not do anything except just exist. The next installment, Deadly Alliance, is almost universally accepted by fans as a powerhouse of lore regarding all characters. In Deadly Alliance, Kano has remained in Outworld as a general in Shao Kahn's military, but when Shang Tsung and Quan Chi ambush Khan, Kano does what Kano always does. He hides, waits, and prepares to side with whoever survives. He also got greedier over time and no longer remained satisfied just by yanking out people's hearts or skeletons. Now he went all in, tearing apart different organs as he pleased. In his non-canon arcade ending, after he activated Quan Chi's amulet, he also defeated Sonya, his arch nemesis, and wore her hair around his neck like some freaky trophy. This game added one of the biggest lore upgrades to Kano up to that point. He was not seen in Mortal Kombat Deception, and only as a non-playable role in Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. Then you have Armageddon, where he doesn't really do much, and that's understandable because with so many characters around, it's not really possible to single him out for any kind of development. In Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, he tries to take out Flash for a minor inconvenience, without even knowing who he is. But in the arcade ending, Kano went completely mad after the combat rage disappeared and Dark Khan was defeated, and ended up becoming the Joker? Yeah, that part perplexes me as well. The MK9 game bio describes him as an undisciplined, dangerous thug for hire, who was a go-to man for the Black Dragon. However, his face was badly mutilated during an operation gone wrong, and he used underworld connections to find a cyberneticist who fitted him with several high-tech enhancements, most notably his eye laser. This is the point to focus on because this bio clearly indicates that his eye was not the only cybernetic upgrade he was granted. The non-canon arcade ending showed him using these upgrades to gain access to technology all over the world, controlling armies and nuclear weapons, almost getting ready to end all life on Earth. Finally, in MKX, Kano's cybernetic heart becomes part of his visual loadout, an external power hub worn across his chest, feeding and amplifying all his other enhancements. And I know what you're thinking. Visually and functionally, fans compare it to Iron Man's arc react, just filtering through Kano's uglier, grimier Black Dragon energy. The cybernetic heart serves as a booster for his other enhancements, providing a power supply to overcharge his existing ability. does. Is his heart the most dangerous thing about him? I would say that Kano was dangerous without the cybernetic heart just the same. But tactically, it obviously makes him a much more difficult opponent to beat. In Mortal Kombat X, his heart changes color alongside his other cybernetics depending on the variation chosen. Cybernetic gives them the signature color red, Commando makes them yellow, and Cutthroat goes with blue. When he has no variation selected, the cybernetics can also appear green. In Mortal Kombat 11, his heart is a customizable gear item, effectively making it a weapon in its own right, rather than just a power enhancer for his other abilities. I want to point out here that Kano's heart is not the same as Suhao's, because the latter's is a real pulsating device that replaced his biological heart. This is not the same as Kano, and it's never clarified if he got his robotic heart put in by the same doctor who did his eye. He wears it on a bandolier across his chest, so it's clearly an external device, a power hub that keeps all his tech running and amplifies everything from his laser eye to his combat strength. It started as a pure utility device in MKX and gradually evolved into an active combat tool by Mortal Kombat 11. I find it a bit poetic that a cold and ruthless character like Kano has an external heart in place, because traditionally, this is the organ most closely associated with one's humanity. His habit of shifting alliances certainly influenced him to go no-nonsense emotionless upgrades for his heart as well.
How does he actually fight, and what does that say about his body? Kano is skilled in hand-to-hand combat as well as throwing knives, and while the moves are rooted in Shingi and Aikido, he's more of a guy who likes to play dirty. He has no issues using underhanded tactics because winning is what matters to him. If you pay attention to how his style has developed across the franchise, you'll notice he doesn't really fight like a human being who's learned to use the cool gadgets and upgrades in his body. It seems more as if he's a ruthless war machine despite being human, and his cybernetics have just become part of him. I'll quickly go over some of his legendary moves just for the sake of coherence, because I'm sure all of you are well acquainted with them anyway. The cannonball is one of his signature moves, where he rolls into a ball and straight up heads towards his opponent. This is called the Kano ball in MK11 and is impossible to block if it's held for the full charge. In MKX, it's called the Black Dragon Ball. The down ball is a version of the above, where Kano falls from the air to the ground and hits his opponent. As seen in MK11, he's able to amplify the attack even if it has been blocked. My favorite variant is the Psycho Cannonball though, because it's just fun to see him fly all over the screen randomly. Very Kano energy, if you ask me. His knife throw is another one of his iconic moves, which is upgraded to blade throw at MKX and blade toss in MK11. Knife toss has an enhanced version called multi-blades, where he throws the knives at the opponent at different heights. Coming to my favorite move, the chokehold is infamous for all the right reasons. It truly portrays what Kano is as a fighter, because not only will he choke you, he'll also simultaneously stab you in the chest so you have no way of making a comeback. In Mortal Kombat 2011, he simply throttles his opponent, making them kneel while he laughs like a madman. In Mortal Kombat 11, this is enhanced and made into the Kano choke, where he smashes his enemies' heads into the ground continuously, while laughing, yes, and then rolls them over to the other side. The inner rage move, called Power Up in MKX, involves him concentrating for a short time while his hands get covered in red energy. His cybernetic heart can amplify its effects, but using this in quick succession drains Kano's own energy. The Vegemite involves him pounding on his external heart, causing it to overload with energy, and this amplifies the effects of his Black Dragon Ball. He uses the biomagnetic pull to force his opponents closer to him, and the biomagnetic trap to throw them off from jumping. The lumbar check is another cool and deadly move, where he basically breaks his opponent's spine over his knees. It's very cinematic. As you can see, he was clearly capable of inflicting a lot of pain and damage before the enhancements happened, but he quickly adapted his style to work along with them in such a way that his signature unorthodox moves have only become more and more difficult to block. Every move is rooted in one original concept, and they have been improved with cybernetics. Kano is truly a work in progress, and this is what I like about him. He doesn't go, okay, I have this cool heart and cool eye, so I'm invulnerable. He continuously improves on his existing moves to take his opponents by surprise. Why are his fatalities basically a biology class? I know most of you have been wondering about why I haven't spoken much about his fatalities, and that's because I needed to make a specific subsection for them. They deserve to be in a biology class because of just how violent and gore heavy they are. Kano pretty much gives us a class in human anatomy whenever he finishes an opponent. I already spoke about the heart rip towards the beginning of the video, as well as the skeleton rips, so let's take a look at the rest. The MK Game Boy version shows us the deadly roundhouse, where he performs the kick on an opponent, launching them into the air while their neck snaps before they fall to the ground. The organ donor is especially poetic because he rips out organs 2 at a time, taking his own pick: heart, liver, kidneys, depending on how he feels. He then kicks the opponent away. The heartbreak is an interesting variation of the heart rip, where he turns the opponent around, it tears out their heart from the back, holding it in such a way that the dying person can see it. He then crushes it, pulls it back, and hoists what remains into the air. Eat Your Heart Out is another wonderfully violent and somewhat redundant move, where he pulls the heart out as usual, but then rips the head off, stuffing it in the hole of the chest where the heart was, before kicking them away. You gotta give it to this man, he knows what to do with body parts. I wonder what kind of imagination it takes to rip out someone's heart and head and then stuff the head into the gaping hole in the chest. The only other thing to do was to stuff the heart over the neck where the head was, but I don't want the developers to get any ideas. The head case is when he slashes an opponent's midsection deep enough for their intestines to fall out, and then blasts his eye laser through their head, just because intestines falling out isn't enough, I guess. Face like a dropped pie is pretty self-explanatory. He simply headbutts his opponent until there's nothing left. The last dance is something out of a psychopath's wet dream. He pulls out a beer bottle, drinks it completely before smashing it in the opponent's face, and then stabbing them in the neck with the broken base. He then laughs and grabs the dying person, dancing to a duet while the music plays in the background and they bleed to death from their slashed throat. Initially, when I saw these moves, I would feel quite disturbed, but over time, I've come to appreciate just how creepy and well thought out they are. They're still disturbing, don't get me wrong, but the kind that makes you appreciate the effort that went into them. It reflects his worldview in a very straightforward manner. To Kano, killing is simply not enough. It's just not fun. As long as he doesn't completely dismantle his enemies, he's not. What did the 1995 film do to his physical image? The late Trevor Goddard embodied Kano in such a raw manner that the games ended up adopting that scarred and unpredictable image. Before this, he was modeled on Richard DeVizio. He had a presence, but not one that stayed with fans, and that's exactly what Goddard changed. Kano was no longer a bald guy in a karate gi. The actor made the character look and feel dangerous because no one could guess his next move. No one could make bets on what he would end up doing. He brought life to the ruthless ends justify the means nature of Kano. Goddard was an Englishman himself, so he spoke with a Cockney accent while playing Kano on screen. This was mistaken by many fans as an Australian accent. Blimey. And no one really corrected it because somehow, that misinterpretation just seemed to add something special to Kano. A London boy ended up giving new life to one of the most notable villains in gaming, somehow turning him Australian. The games didn't just borrow the accent, the entire silhouette of the character was redesigned to be similar to Goddard's portrayal. You know the most ironic thing here? The actor himself, for most of his life, claimed to be Australian and not English. Very fitting that he at least managed to turn one of his on-screen characters into the nationality he was so fond of. How does the 2021 film reimagine his anatomy entirely? This film took certain liberties regarding how some characters got their abilities, and they didn't include a pretty iconic aspect of Kano's design. In much of the game lore, Kano's damaged face and cybernetic eye are tied to his violent history with Jax and the Special Forces. In the 2021 movie, however, this is not the case. There's no surgery by a seedy doctor who was behind the Chinese cybernetics experiment. Instead, he gets the ability to shoot laser beams from his eye after he awakens Arcana, an inner power which remains dormant otherwise, but can be activated by an Earthrealm champion who possesses the Dragon Mark. Interestingly, this can be transferred to people who kill the original possessors of the mark. Awakening Arcana has different effects on everyone. For instance, Cole Young was able to get golden armor that can absorb and release the kinetic energy from attacks targeted at him in the form of heat or striking power. Jax gets even stronger prosthetic arms as a result of Arcana. Kano awakened after an argument with Liu Kang and Kung Lao, and it allowed him to shoot a laser beam from his right eye. It was strong enough to cut through everything, and even damage Raiden's staff. This deviation from the original lore showed that Kano's ability did not come from him choosing to be a more lethal weapon, pun intended, by awakening a latent destructive power within himself. The introduction of Arcana is the most controversial lore change in the films, and I don't need to mention how well that was taken. Since Sonya takes Kano's Dragon Mark after killing him, the sequel had to answer a major question. Does resurrected Kano still have access to Arcana, or does he need cybernetics to become the Kano fans recognize? Mortal Kombat 2 brings Josh Lawson back as Revenant Kano, giving the film side another chance to push him closer to the version fans know from the games. Because his cybernetic heart came much later than the cybernetic eye in the games, and as such, this is his whole thing, right? How are we supposed to watch someone play him on screen without the very features that define it? Imagine if Captain America were given a sword instead of a shield. That just doesn't make any sense. How has his body been used to drive the story? For a character whose entire storyline is propelled by his anatomical design, it's no wonder that Kano's body and its enhancements have been used as plot devices in the franchise. His cybernetics don't simply add to his mystique or fatalities, they also drive the story ahead. I've already explained how Trevor Goddard's portrayal in the 1995 movie seeped over to influence Kano's later character design. The devil-may-care attitude, freaky personality, and insistence on urinating in the open are not just gimmicks, and we see that taking a concrete shape in Mortal Kombat 11, thanks to Kronika, where two versions of the character appear simultaneously, who are not similar in appearance or in mannerisms to an extent. Present-day Kano has more hair on his head as well as on his face, and a much sleeker bionic eye, and his cybernetic heart in the bandolier around his chest, fastened with 3 straps. He looks muscular and has dragon tattoos on both arms. The past Kano looks closer to his MK3 counterpart, sporting a red and black gi. His bionic eye is smaller, and he has the same cybernetic heart, too. The difference in their designs points out how the present-day character looks sharper after having upgraded himself continuously over the years. The past version looks rougher, slightly more juvenile, but still embodies the grit the Kano's always had. In every game, whenever characters come face to face with their past or future versions, we've usually seen some form of conflict. In Mortal Kombat, when 2 variants of Kano appear before each other, there's not a lot of animosity. Kano is not someone who evolves morally or ethically. He can do anything for the right price and even stab his mother in the back. His upgrades have always been about his cybernetics, and in some way they reflect the widening gap with his humane side. He unknowingly reveals to Sonya the secret to killing himself by holding Johnny hostage, because she then shoots his past version only for the present one to fade from existence. So, double trouble for a while until you realize that he probably should have upgraded his intelligence a bit. Wait, is Kano even the character that the creators designed? This is what we don't ask enough. The Kano we've grown to love, how much of his design was actually penned down and how much just ended up happening? Remember, I mentioned how John Tobias's earliest concept sketches, Kano had an eye patch, and then it was considered to give him a large helmet with glowing red eyes. Neither of those versions looks like anything we ended up with in the game. For the first live-action adaptation, Lawrence Kasanoff had redesigned Kano to look similar to Schwarzenegger's Terminator. When the set was visited by a couple school kids one day, they pointed out how this new design wasn't unique enough, which made the filmmaker reinstate the earlier appearance. Midway Games concept artist Vincent Prose envisioned Kano as a half Japanese, half US military badass, but it was eventually scrapped as well. So, the original designers gave us a bald guy with a borrowed Terminator eye and a dubious nationality. The franchise chose to retain, for the most part, the swagger of an English actor pretending to be Australians, along with unique in-game features and upgrades. Most characters become legendary because of the people behind them. Kano became legendary because of how the fans viewed him. As you can see, Kano is a peculiar character because he got more popular the more he drifted from his original blueprint. His character evolved piece by piece, much like his cybernetics did, to amplify his abilities. We can only hope that future films continue to do him justice and to the franchise as a whole by establishing him the way he is known and loved. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more deep dives like this one, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. There's a lot more Mortal Kombat lore left to dissect. And as always, stay marvelous.